Hey, welcome to our second episode of our first season of our new podcast called We Who Dare. I had to look down. Used to be called Intern Avery. We'll just call her Avery now. I keep getting the name wrong, and so she threatened to make sound effects if I didn't get it right. So, but this entire podcast season is to talk about parenting. And so our first episode, I keep looking at you, Avery, to give me the right words here. So our first episode was all about littles when it comes to parenting little kids from birth through preschool. And then today is all about middles, looking at that elementary age and how we parent in that context. And then the next episode is going to be on bigs. And then we're going to have a Q&A, am I right? Are we doing that? So you'll get more information on that. And so just stay tuned somewhere in here. There's going to be a little commercial or some sort of thing or something, tell you what to do with that. So, and Mike, y'all ready for people just call in and ask you random questions real quick?
Sure.
Yeah. So, yeah, we don't have that technology yet. We're a Dallas, North Carolina church. So let me set this up real quick. And we're just kind of doing this to get our frame of reference. When we're talking about parenting, we're talking about shepherding our children. And probably the most well-known passage in the Bible about shepherding is Psalm 23. Psalm 23 reads, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever." Now, I did a whole series on what that looks like in parenting and looking at how God shepherds us and how we translate that. And it's available on our Dare to Venture podcast. You can go check that out as well as on our YouTube channel. But what we're doing here is getting into the application of what I preached about a couple years ago. And so with Keri and I, Keri's with me. You want to say hey, babe?
Hi.
Here she is. She's got such a cool voice. You want to sing a song for us?
Nope.
No song. No singing today. We didn't pay her enough. We didn't pay her anything. So in our first episode, you heard from Jonathan and Jennifer Pugh, who have 5 children, and so that is an interesting chaos of itself. Presents a life thing,
As well as Dan and Chris.
And Dan and Chris, yes, we had Dan and Chris. We had 6 of us in this thing, and they have triplets. Which seems to be a theme for this season, because with me is Mike and Jessica. I'm going to call you Jessica. I don't know why.
That's fine.
Is that your actual name?
Yes.
Oh, cool. So we just call you Jessie. So Mike and Jessie Barber, and they have triplets as well, except their triplets are all now teenagers. You're going to hear more about all that in a minute. And so they're not too far removed from having elementary age kids. Keri and I have an elementary age kid still, our youngest. And so we're all kind of still in this, but also removed from it. We have 2 children that are not. We have a middle schooler. We have a high schooler and a college kid now. So, but this is also really interesting because you guys have a very unique background. So it's unique just to have triplets. The fact that we've had 2 in a row on this is pretty cool. But you bring something to the table that not everybody can really say, "Oh, I get that." And so you're going to have some neat perspective. So let's just rip that Band-Aid off. Well, Mike, you served our country as a Navy SEAL and different teams, and finished your career on SEAL Team 6. And we got to that because you guys were over our house one time, and I'm pushing on, "Well, what'd you do in the Navy?" And he doesn't run around and tell people that. His wife actually finally broke the ice, because I'm like, "Well, what ship were you on?" "Well, no one." "Oh, you're in shore duty." "Well, not really." And I was like, "What'd you do?" So just like, "It was a SEAL, gosh." So, but y'all had 757 numbers, and that's what started all this. I'm like, y'all my people. You from my neck. Y'all been in my stomping grounds. So, tell us a little bit about your story as a couple, how you met, and let's kind of just set the table here. I know, Mike, you weren't even in the Navy, and then went after, just got a heartbeat to do this. So tell them a little about how you ended up a SEAL.
So I think I was always interested in it from a really young age.
the movie Navy SEALs came out when I was 16. So I went to see that immediately. I just got my license, and of course I had a date, and it was kind of funny.
Yeah.
We got to the theater, and it's like, what do you want to watch? And she's like, I don't care. I said, all right, 2 for Navy SEAls. So
that's where we're going.
Went down that path early on. So my military career actually started in the Army National Guard. And I was 17. My parents co-signed for me to join. And the way it worked is when I graduated high school, like 2-3 weeks later or so, I immediately leave and go to basic training in AIT. So I did that at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. And I was trained as a 13 Foxtrot, which is a forward observer. And my unit was in Newton, North Carolina. At the time, I was going to high school in Newton, and so I was there. That unit eventually shut down, and so I ended up moving to the Lincolnton unit. And that unit, as far as I know, I think it is still there, and it's still like 1st the 113th Field Artillery. So during my college years, it was kind of interesting because I only did a relatively few number of drills that 1 weekend a month there at the unit because we did a lot of time at Fort Bragg. And at the time I was going to college at UNC Wilmington, so I would just drive and meet them there. So it was an interesting thing. I looked at several different, I'd looked at the regular Army at one point. The National Guard was my parents' deal for me. Because I looked at it, I was like, well, wait a minute, if I do this, and I'm talking to a recruiter, and the recruiter was very straightforward, and he's going, I said, well, what about the Airborne Rangers? He's like, well, we can sign you up for 2 years, blah, blah, blah. And then my parents are over there like, no, you're college bound, you're going to go to college. And it's like, well, but I could get out later and I could go to college. And so they kept squashing that idea. In the back of my mind, I was thinking, Navy SEAL would be great, but there's just really no way to get there and get around my parents' wishes of me going to college. And so it ended up being good. It was sort of like, put your toe in the water, and if you don't like it, at least you can run. So as it turned out, I did 7 years in the Army National Guard, and then essentially did a branch transfer directly to the active duty Navy. Yeah, and that occurred right after college. So.
And then made your way on into the teams. And
yeah, at the time, actually, they still have something in place there. It's some type of special deal where you go in, and it's called the SEAL Challenge Program. And so you sign up, you pick a rate, a particular job in the Navy. Mine was interior communications electrician. And that took some doing because when I did my branch transfer, you had to retake the ASVAB. And I typically do well on those tests, and I scored high, and so the guy kept going, you need to be a nuclear engineer. And then they have slots to fill, and so that guy, he's trying to, that he gets a bigger bonus if he gets more nukes. And so he's like, this guy's, he's got good grades, he can be a nuke. And I'm like, no, that's not really what I'm interested in. So I finally got my rate settled, went in, and then you do basic training and your A school, and then you get orders to basic underwater demolition SEAL training. So,
and as I remember, you told me you got assigned to your team just a few months prior to 9/11. Did I remember that correctly?
Yeah. So this is all in 2000. In fact, I was in BUDS training in 2000. We like to joke that we were the first class of the new millennium. So we finished up training. At the time, it's changed up a little bit, but at the time you would finish BUDS training, then you go out to Fort Benning, Georgia, you do jump school, and then you already had orders cut for your team, but you would go to your particular team. I ended up at SEAL Team 8, which is there in the 757. And you're neck of the woods, so.
Yeah.
At the time you get there, I think you got about a year or so before you actually get your SEAL Trident. Now they do it differently. You go through a whole qualification course, and at the end you graduate with your SEAL Trident. But at the time you were kind of like a pledge, Yeah. So you really had to watch everything. You finished up SEAL Tactical Training, which was a step above what we had done in our basic underwater demolition SEAL training, and then you were sort of ready. They had this draft for the people who graduate from that course. And believe it or not, there was 1 or 2 guys who didn't get picked up in the draft for the rotation out. So, there's only so many slots in a platoon, a regular SEAL platoon, 16 men. And so if you were known to be a slacker or this or that, you may not be in the first, second, or third round. And there were guys who were ahead of me in a BUDS class and still got passed by to get on a SEAL platoon and deploy. So
Wow.
yeah, it'd be bad. So I got picked up for a platoon. We were in our workup when 9/11 happened, and then deployed. We were scheduled to deploy. I think it was in December. Is that right?
I think it was like November because you were supposed to come home for pre-deployment leave, and you almost didn't get that.
Yeah, they did give us a 2-week leave, and then but they bumped it really far forward, and so within a few weeks I was in Afghanistan.
Yeah, you were on the ground, and you shared some pretty wild stories from that. Which I want to do a season eventually, and for our police, our military, and dealing with all this kind of thing. So we're going to leave you hanging on those stories. And Mike shared some just incredible moments. I was just blessed. We went hunting last year, and you were just kind of talking about that moment where you realize, oh, I'm not going to live forever, and but we won't tell nobody about that yet. So. But I'm looking forward to doing a season on that. Mike's working with me right now on our Dare to Act. Where we're trying to develop, trying to raise money to help get people through PTSD counseling and therapy and things. And so I've just got the privilege of being able to hear some of how God used you and just how you've served us as a nation has been really cool. But this creates an interesting dynamic. I have a family member that's a Green Beret, and so I'm familiar with the dynamic where the government doesn't say, okay, in 6 months you're going to be gone, and it's going to be this and that, and oh, Jesse, here's all the things, and we've got everything in order for you, and life's going to be nice and easy. Instead, it's boom, gone, and don't know when we're coming back. Can't tell you where I am. Don't really know what we're doing. We're in this part of the world. It's on the other side, and so you guys have children in the middle of you being a team guy. And when were they born?
2008.
2008, all three of them.
Mm-hmm.
And what's hilarious, if you ever meet their kids, you will never guess they're triplets. So you'd hardly guess their brother and sister.
Yeah, they don't look alike.
They don't look alike. They're not the same
Act
size.
alike.
Like nothing. They're three unique kids. So what's this like for you? I mean, you're home with, and we already did our littles thing, but people kind of want to know, what is it like to have 3 babies and no husband? Like nobody's home.
It was hard. I'm glad you didn't ask us to do the littles because that was like surviving. We didn't.
Because you were living away from family at this time as well.
Yeah, we were 6.5 hours from our closest family members. Michael had just gone to Dam Neck. I had just graduated from PA school, and they were born a year later. So our family took a lot of time off. So when he was deployed, a scheduled deployment, we could get family to come in and help, but they're not always scheduled deployments. So he was just joking before he started. I mean, it's no secret that we did fertility treatment, and in the middle of a fertility treatment, he walks in my office and he was like, "So I'm leaving tomorrow," and I'm like, "What?" and that was kind of like the joke from the
Did
time we were
someone
trying.
tell George Bush we're trying to have some kids?
Yes, exactly.
That's about what she said.
We won't go into the details of all that, but it was like trying. And then when they were 3 months old, he got recalled. 12 hours, I guess, to leave. He was like, deuces, guys, I'm out. I'm like, what do you mean you're out? I've got 3-month-olds. What am I going to do? But for deployments that were scheduled, we had family. Yeah. And we eventually had to hire help because it just was too much.
This is the one where your mother's screaming about, is he leaving you? When you're telling her to come up and help?
Oh, well, that's funny because of our whole life story. So our family knows not to say too much over the phone because you're just not supposed to communicate information with him traveling.
Right.
So I called my mom and I was like, "Hey, I really need you to get up here tomorrow." And she said, "Why?" I was like, "I just need you to come. It's like an emergency. I need you here." And she was like, "Jesse, why?" I was like, "What can you guys figure this out?" And she's like, "Is he leaving you? Is he leaving you?" And I was like, "No, Mother, he's not leaving me. I would be able to tell you that on the phone. Think about this."
That's not top secret.
She's like, "Oh yeah, that's true." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" But that was when they were young. So yeah.
So you guys are actually saying you were gone so much that, tell us what happened one time when you came home and you said, "Daddy's home."
That was towards the end, right?
I think it was like the last deployment.
Yeah. Luckily, I only did 2 deployments.
After they were born.
After they were born.
Wait, 2 deployments and a recall.
Well, sure. But
He was still gone a lot.
Yeah.
Only 2 deployments.
Who's counting?
Yeah.
That's the title. That's not the details.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah, so we, the teams definitely give you a lot of benefits, and one is that in a lot of regards, you have access to stuff that the regular military doesn't, and so we did have computers. A lot of us had a really good internet connection. And, you have to police yourself, but they still allow us to use Skype. And so, I spent a lot of time. I would try and speak to my kids most days. Luckily, we work nights overseas, and so the daytime was their evening, but we would, get to cross paths. So I tried to talk to my kids every day, but it was typically on Skype, and I'd spend a lot of time on the road. And so the episode she's talking about is where I come home and she's like, hey, come talk to Dad. And I was sitting on the couch and, she's going, come talk to Dad. And they would go get the computer and break it out and open it up. And Dad.
Yeah, Dad, he's on this thing. I don't know who that guy is, but Dad is
looks an
on
awful
this
like
computer.
like my dad.
Well, now mind you, Michael had a beard down to here and hair in a ponytail. So like he was all hair.
I got to
and,
see
like,
pictures because that just
it was
doesn't
a lot.
even. Yeah.
It was a lot.
Y'all keep telling us we can come over to the house one day. I need to pop some Benadryl, deal with your animals because we got to see these pictures.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right. My nickname was the Dude.
Yeah.
The Dude.
Yeah. So the guy from The Big Lebowski, and with a beard and hair, I look just like him.
Just like the Dude.
Wow.
So this is setting up a context to when you get out of the teams, Dad is the guy on a screen, and so you guys get out of the teams, and then what happens next? I say you guys because you're in it together,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
So you get out of the team. So what happens next?
We moved home.
Yep.
Kind of, I guess on a whim. We didn't have a plan.
Yeah, I'd started putting the feelers out for jobs and was somewhat disappointed that there wasn't more. I was considering like some contract work and some other things, which a lot of gunslingers kind of go towards that angle. But
it didn't help the schedule much.
Yeah, right. And that was one of the main, reasons for getting out was just like, man, I kind of want to be present for my family. So it was good in the sense that I was looking to completely turn and over a new leaf and go a different direction. And so we moved back home because it was like, oh, well, we'll be around grandparents. And, I know they want to see the kids and that'll be a lot of help for her. And so we ended up coming back. And my first job was at a defense contractor, which was a nice, but it was local. And that was like a good segue for me because I was a bit concerned as how I would integrate back into society.
Yeah.
Just being around the guys I wasn't sure how it was going to work. So coming back in, and I went to work for this place, but there was tons of former like special forces guys there. And so, it was a really good transition into the working world. My next was into banking. I went to work for Wells Fargo. So I tried to always pick up some new skills and, put them to work.
And I remember us talking before where this isn't always normal, but you really looked forward to getting back to your family. If I remember you saying like that was a drive for you. I wanted to get to my family. I wanted to get to my kids. And, which is not always the case, for everybody in service. And especially after they've been on the field in combat and all the adrenaline and all the things. And, but that was a real drive for you and why you got out. Fast forward in y'all's story. Cause here's another catch if you're listening to this. So you weren't expecting that part of this. The next part is you guys end up separated and your kids are how old?
7
7-ish.
ish.
So we're in the heart of middle's age.
Yes.
So here we are, elementary school. Dad's been a screen and reintroduced himself. You guys were in Asheville at this point, right?
No, we were in Lincolnton.
You were in Lincolnton.
We were in Lincolnton for a couple years. And we had bought a house and we're living in Denver. And then we separated in, they were like 7, I think. I had not worked. Well, I worked a little bit when they were younger, but I had not worked. So I went back to work full time and I moved to Asheville.
That's right. You moved. It was your fault.
Yeah. I mean, it was. But we won't go there, Austin. But and Michael said
we're in like the 3rd season.
yeah,
we're
I mean, we
have
could
you now.
talk about all kinds of stuff with us. And Mike stayed in Denver at the time, and we homeschooled. Well, we had a homeschool nanny that traveled back and forth with our kids. So they would come to Asheville with me, and then they would come home with him.
So walk us through that. Look, so a little bit, because then eventually you moved to Asheville.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we just some really cool talks on our hunting trip. We were just kind of talking about that whole experience with me. So you're now in this dynamic, which you've kind of learned a little bit because you were gone all the time. Yep. So you've got a little experience in this. But how does this work? I mean, like how because plot twist, they're back together. That's why they're here, right? So the Lord brought you guys back together, and you've shared it was the commitment to your kids that became the
segue.
the segue or
yeah.
the environment, the culture where the Lord was able to bring you two back together as a couple because you were so committed to parenting your kids through this. So we're public school people. You guys are homeschool people. So we've got two different angles on how we approach it, but to the same end. So tell me, what were some of when you guys, like, how did y'all work that out? So you're going to separate, like, how did y'all decide how this is going to work? Like, what was that like?
Well, the first year was probably the hardest because we were an hour and a half apart. Mm-hmm. We were separated 4 years, but we tried to get back together a couple times. So then, Michael moved to Asheville. We did eventually put them in private school because I was working full time, he was working full time, and we were both in Asheville. So then they started going to school. And then, I guess when we first separated, or the whole time we were separated, our kids became the focus. We just vowed that we were never going to use them against each other. We were never going to talk negatively about each other. And we were going to co-parent to the best of our abilities. And we did that. I mean, we could have a knockdown drag out on the phone and go to a kids event and sit together and be a family and then go home and have another knockdown drag out.
And deal with that. Yeah.
I mean, you just have to do it. I mean, you do it as parents, right? Like, we do it now. Like, we might not be in a great place, but we still have to have dinner with our kids, and we're not going to bring it to the table. But some things that we did was we had week to week custody.
Yeah, we both wanted 50-50. We insisted on that. And
Yeah.
so it was, okay, well, so we would do week to week. And then at some point, maybe 2 years in or so, I think it was you that suggested the Wednesday night dinner.
Well, you were in Nashville when you were local. Yeah. So then we did a Wednesday night dinner. Wednesday nights, without fail, there was no excuses. We went to a restaurant and had dinner as a family of 5.
That gave her and I a chance to sit down and get our schedules together. And it was, hey, I'm going out of town for a work trip. Okay, well, I'll take the kids that weekend.
Yeah.
We're just working together. And
I had never been away from the kids. So, like, he had, right, with the military, but I had never experienced not having them in my home every night.
Was there like
takes a lot of getting used to.
I was going to say, was there like at first like I'm free, and then but then kind of a retraction, like
it seems like it until it happens, and then you're like, what am I going to do, and what are they doing, and it's not fun. But and then plot twist, we did, like, whoever has the kids, the other person had to pay for dinner. It was like, hey, you've had a long week with the kids, I'll pay your dinner. So we used to do silly things like that. But another thing we did, and I think it was important, obviously you have to trust the person that you're with or co-parenting with. We had a bank account. We didn't do child support and alimony. We had a bank account that was for kids only. And so we come up with a set amount of money that we each put in per paycheck, and the money was just spent, like clothing and school and
anything
tuition.
Over a couple $100, it's,
you kind of,
we would discuss.
Yeah, we talked about
take
it.
them and,
But
they need bathing suits. So.
We didn't have a money situation either. So that was also another thing. We didn't have that.
Yeah, that point
strain.
of contention.
Yeah. No, we didn't do that. No. We were lucky though. Like, I was able to go back to work. I was able to do what I needed to do. He could do what he needed to do, and we were truly co-parenting. That's not an option for everybody.
Yeah, and I don't recommend separation to accomplish this. But
we tell
what's interesting, don't go that route. What's interesting is you guys had to talk to each other about how you're going to parent the kids. As a matter of fact, it was probably about all you were talking about with one another at this point in life, right?
A lot of times,
Most of the time,
Yeah. But we had a Christian counselor that we saw for a long time, and he said, from a Christian perspective, it's okay to separate if you do it the right way, and the right way is to separate.
Not like we did.
Yes, no. The separation is meant to work on yourself. It's meant to grow your faith. It's meant to grow yourself as a parent, who you want to be in your relationship. It's not a time to go sow your oats, or whatever it is you're going to do. So
it's run to your corners and knock things over. Yeah, it's to run to your corners to get yourself straight, so to come back.
Yes.
And not to point fingers at each other. Right? Like we did a lot of that in the beginning, because that's what you do. I mean, it's a blame game.
Yeah.
But will you get over that?
So you guys actually, in the way you parented, tell them how this ended up. It's a neat little story. So tell them how you're talking to one another, you're going out to eat together, you're doing all these things.
Well, so on that, it was kind of laughing. We would go to like ball games and stuff, because our kids, they did soccer, they did competitive gymnastics. They've been active a long time. And if there were a soccer game or something, she and I would always sit together side by side. And sometimes there were times where she had a girlfriend or two around that would come and hang out. And she told me more than once, after they left, her friend is going, "Are you guys sure that or y'all want to be separate? Like, you two sit around and you joke and you seem to have y'all enjoy each other's company. Like, this is so weird. What is going on?"
Well, we went to Halloween at Ridge's friend's house, and his parents were like, "You guys get along better than we do."
Yes. Yeah. So it was an unusual scenario, to say the least.
It was, and other people. I'll say this: we got a lot of pushback from everybody else about the way we were doing it. Right. So our friends, not so much family. I don't think family really interjected, but a lot of our friends are like, you can't do this forever. If you divorce or separate or whatever, and you start to date, no one's going to allow this to happen. And both of us were very much we don't care. That's not what the point. The point is that we have this much time to parent our kids, and if you as a friend or one of us has a significant other at another time and they don't like it, then go away. This is not what it's about. We're going to parent our kids first. So we got a lot of pushback, a lot of just judgment about how we were doing it. And but So when we finally got back together, we got back together a couple times. But the last time, it was funny. I mentioned it. I wanted to take the kids on a trip, and I decided to take them to Puerto Rico. And after I planned the whole trip, I got cold feet about leaving with the three of them by myself.
Yeah. So you're like, wait a minute.
Being in a foreign country with three kids, and she's like, what if I carry? I only know one person.
And I got comfortable with my Navy SEAL husband. So I was like, "Hey, you think you want to go on this trip with me?" And our friends at this point were completely appalled. They're like, "I can't believe you are going to do this." And we did. And we had a great time, and we had a lot of time to talk, and we had a lot of time to fight. And when we got back, that was February of 2020. So when we got back, the world shut down. And so we joked about it, that it's a good thing that we had Puerto Rico to kind of set the tone, because we probably would have lived under the same roof anyway. But we did live in Asheville at that point, and things were a little uncomfortable in Asheville during 2020. And we had some writing and stuff that we didn't normally have. And so, we talked about it, and he's like, "I probably would have slept on your sofa, just because I would have wanted to make sure you and the kids were okay." And then being apart week to week wouldn't have made sense. And anyway, it was just a start to what would have happened probably anyway. So then we really moved in together.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for lockdown, you can imagine. It was another one of those interesting
24/7.
things. Yeah. A year later,
Fun times.
those same people she was talking about that we spent Halloween with, I think they ended up splitting up. And we talked to them kind of when that was, or I guess right after that all occurred. And they realized during that year that they really didn't like each other at all, right? They were using their jobs and other things to move around. And, you take the daughter and I'll take the son. And they just didn't want to spend time together, but they were using their family as a way of doing it.
COVID forced them to see that they realistically never spent time together.
Right.
They were on different programs. And so they separated because it was devastating for them to spend so much time together. I'm not going to say ours was perfect. I don't know that anybody's 2020 was perfect. We all get sick
We
of each
never
other.
saw each other in 2020. My life went to like insanity level during that time. So
Dude, that's hard.
everybody's talking about all this time they had together. We're like, that would have been nice.
It was good for us.
It
I mean,
was
we lived in a
perfect
nice
for us.
neighborhood that we could get out and walk around, and like we weren't confined. But you know, we also had to address a lot of stuff because we were reorienting into being
How
a
did,
family.
how did the kids adjust to that? Was there a lot of, how did you have to handle that?
So they were young, and the few conversations that we had was I don't know. They were surprised by divorce. They're like, "Yeah, you're separated." And I'm like, "What if we get divorced?" And they're like, "What?" So that didn't resonate. We didn't really talk about moving on, like as far as if we ever dated or anything. We never talked about that with them because that was really not a thing. Like that wasn't something we were ready to address. I will say this. We thought they'd come out pretty unscathed until we were moving back to Lincolnton, and I found my daughter's journal. Yeah, and she had drawn some pictures, and like, I wailed.
You had a meltdown.
I had a meltdown. Like we were packing, and he was outside and heard me scream. He thought I had like hurt myself. I had a meltdown because it just hit me like so hard. I'm like, we knew that it was going to be hard for them, but you don't see how they're processing it.
Yeah.
And so we had found her journal, and as they got older, they would say things like, I would cry myself to sleep at night sometimes, or I would pray that you would get back together, and you know.
But none of that at the time.
Yeah.
Like it
No,
didn't
we didn't
seem
hear
that they
any of
were.
it.
And we did as best a job as we could, like she said, to never talk bad. You know, it was important to me. It was important to both of us. But I'll say from my perspective, it was always understanding that my boys are going to learn how to treat their wife to be in the way that I treat her, their mother. Doesn't matter if we're together or not. And probably just as important, more important, is my daughter is going to learn, you know, how a man is supposed to treat a woman by the way that I treat her mother. So.
Yeah.
You know, even when we weren't together, there was none of that, you know, back talking and what's your mother doing this weekend? She hanging out with that drunk friend of hers? You know, that we just didn't go down that route.
We might do it to each other.
right. Your friends, everybody else, but not your kids.
That's right.
Yep.
So they saw the front facing side of our separation, and you know, we weren't together, but it was still very much, this is your family. So we always say we don't recommend this course of action for anyone, and it was extremely hard, but you know, we did it as well as it could have been done.
Yeah.
So
let's talk a little bit about when Keri and I were kind of yapping about things. Part of what drives parenting is and creates the environment, and what you do is what you value for your kids. You know, tell me a little bit about. You were reading this book. You were kind of sharing some things on that. Kind of expound on that a little bit, and then we'll kick it back to them.
Yeah, the book I read was Raising Passionate Jesus Followers. That's the name of it. And they talk about having one goal, and then under that goal you have values, and kind of the things that you value, prioritizing those and picking those things, and then deciding whether or not those values help you to achieve your one goal. And so some of those things may be having fun, or cleanliness, or respect, or learning to be considerate, the things that you that you value, and instilling in your kids. So I don't know what you're asking me to do now. That was what I read.
Yeah. So with that as kind of like, what would you say were the values that you had that were individual, maybe to you, that maybe didn't share with one another? I don't know.
Because a lot of times those are different for each other. You value different things.
When you look at, this is what I value, and this is what I want to see in my kids. Like, what was that for each of you?
Mine has drastically changed. So we talk about this a lot. Again, we don't recommend separation or divorce, but it worked for us in that we learned so much. So part of my issues was I'd gone to PA school, and a year out of PA school, I had triplets and had to stay home with them. The idea was I'll go back to work. Well, then my son was hospitalized with type 1 diabetes. Well,
at
preschools.
at 13 months.
At 13 months, yeah. Preschools don't give shots. So he's in the military. So guess who has to quit their career? That's me.
Yeah.
And so I had a lot of issues with my life changed when we had kids. Your life stayed the same. My life changed. And so that was some of the animosity that fed, into the separation. It's taken me this long, 25 years, how long have I been married, to realize that I had put value and my identity into that career choice. I don't think it's my parents specifically, but my parents raised me to be independent and self-sufficient and to do the best I could do, and that was the goal. Nobody sat me down and said, you need to be a good wife and you need to be a good mother. Nobody sat me down and said, your identity should first be a wife and a mother and then a career. Because now on this side of it, at 44, I've had lots of careers. I went to PA school, but I've had other careers. But the one consistent thing is I will always be a mother and I will always be a wife. And it's not that I devalued them. I just don't think I ever put them up there with my career. So I was really upset that I had to leave my career. And it took me a really long time. I used to even say, like, I'm a stay-at-home mom, but I used to be a PA, right?
Yeah, like you feel like you had to qualify.
Yeah, like I had to say, but I'm more than that. And now at this point, it's taken me meeting other parents too, other moms who say, I would kill to be a stay-at-home mom, but I can't. And then I'm realizing, oh, wait, I have the position you want. And it's not education or career or whatever. So it's taken me, really and truly, my kids are 15, and I'm finally coming to terms with my identity as just a mom. Yeah. Or just a wife, just a mom. Not having it wrapped up in something. So for me, we've talked about it. I think I talked to you a little bit about it the other day, about surrounding our kids. We really, really push them to surround themselves with good people and good friends and people that value the same thing. Because ultimately, that's your pull. That's where you're picking from with that partner, and that partner is going to be with you forever.
Yeah, we were talking about that forever. That's a pretty lengthy part. Your whole life.
Yeah, and I think early on, I had put, not to devalue my marriage by any means, but I had put a lot of time and energy and effort and drive into my career, and I got married. Yeah, where it should have been the other way around. And so we've tried to really hard, really, really push our kids that besides their faith, their number one thing is to find a good partner, because careers change. Michael could have been disabled in the military. If that would have been his identity, what then?
Yeah, and it says a lot about you, Mike. You and I've talked about, my identity as an athlete, and that rush and that accomplishment. And now all of a sudden, nope, you're not doing that anymore. Nope. And you were doing that very thing. You were saying, hey, I'm getting out of SEALs because my family matters more. And that's what people, for the average dude's like, what?
Yeah. Well, I was a chief petty officer at 12 years, and people who know the Navy are like, you made chief in 12 years? Why in the world? You only had 8 more years. I'm like, yep. You've never been shot at, have you?
Exactly. The only people that say that is they ain't even been probably on your side of the gun, much less on the one with the bullet coming out. Yeah. So you made that decision because you guys valued that, and that's a value you carry into, and I love that you're sitting here. You can hear in the kind of in the woke culture that heard you just say what you said, Jesse. I'm a wife and a mom first, and career. No, you can't do that. That's belittling you as a woman. Well, he just said it as a man too, and so we understand in Christ. Our identity is as children of God, and therefore, because our identity is a child of God, I'm going to prioritize what God has made, and He made this marriage, He made our kids, and that's what we're gonna value that above everything else. Jobs can come and go, and so you guys have a commonality in that. That's a value. What's maybe some values? Maybe they're not as big, but that you've disagreed on. Maybe some things you've butted heads on that might be important to you, but it's not really important to you.
Well, that was one. Right? Because because we fought about that a lot. Even after we got back together, Micah would say things to me like, your job is to be a mom. Your job is to raise good kids. And I'm like, I'm so much more than that. So when I say I've literally come to terms with it, I've come to terms with it yesterday. Because I would get mad. I'm like, you can't put me in this box of being a mom. But now I realize what he's saying. And so
Yeah, and I can articulate that better these days. I probably didn't do a fantastic job.
Was it? Didn't go across the aisle very good.
We did both agree that homeschooling was the direction we wanted to go initially. And me being a history nerd, I'd read a couple books. One, it's called The Underground History of American Education, that talks about how our structure, or how the system is structured, right? And so, you're talking about like why our school is the way that it is and why we chose the Prussian model. And so, school, I tell people this, and you can see them get uncomfortable, but it's like school was never designed to make you intelligent, right? This thing was designed to make you just smart enough to read a tech manual. This was in the 1850s. We're right in the middle of the Industrial Revolution. So, there was this idea, like, if you want critical thinkers, you're going to have to create them yourself. And, that's why there's a bell that tells you when to change, shift starting, beep, up, go to school. All that is a part of that system. So we knew right out of the gate that we wanted to homeschool, because it's like, you can throw all that to the side, spend just a couple hours a week. And people found this out during COVID, right? And like, what's my kid doing at school for this many hours when we can start at 9 o'clock and we're done by noon? So it doesn't take that amount of time to really get deep into the weeds.
So let's flesh that out a little bit then. So you guys, you felt like, hey, this homeschool gives us a platform. Well, not the rock chair here. This gives us a platform to teach our kids to think critically.
Yes.
You're not doing this as a teenager. You're doing this at what age?
We
Kindergarten. We started kindergarten through 3rd grade.
Yeah.
So elementary school, you're already going. Because one of my questions on here is how and when. So in elementary school, you're going, part of our job as parents of elementary school kids is to teach them to be able to critically analyze things, make good decisions, informed decisions, create, innovate. Like, walk us down that a little bit more.
Well, we get a lot of questions about homeschooling. In my experience with homeschoolers when I was younger, they were sheltered. Right? Like, parents homeschooled because they wanted to protect their kids and raise them in a bubble. Ours is the exact opposite. We wanted to show the kids the world. We want our kids to understand. I want my kids to grow up being able to handle a toddler during a temper tantrum and go visit my great-grandmother at the nursing home. Like, I need them to be able to, assimilate into any situation, not just kids their own age that like the same things. That was a source of contention, though, because I had to quit my job to homeschool.
It fell on her. Yep, we've decided. And
now
I'm doing
this while I continue to go and work.
And so we did put them in school for 4 years. And it was a good experience. We put them in a classical education school, Christian classical education school in both Asheville and Hickory. But then you learn that you can't get away from certain things. So there were a few things we were having to unteach at home, based on our own philosophies and our own beliefs. Not that they were doing anything wrong. It was just we were also driving an hour and a half round trip twice a day, and their activities were right. So we decided that we would take them back out and see how it went. And when I tell people now, and we homeschool year to year, like, we make decisions year to year. So we told them when we took them out, we're going to homeschool this year, we'll reevaluate next year. But I think we are going to probably be done. We're going to be homeschooling for the rest of the year, or the rest of their school. But that's because they want to too. It's not just us.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we wanted our kids to think, and we wanted them to experience things. When we first took them out, they were worried about missing their friends. But that's not been an issue. We either reconnected with friends that they're close to, or they realized that those are not really people they really want to be friends with anyway. We bribed them the first year.
Well, and there's still athletics and other things, and so they still get plenty of interaction.
Just by the way, Mike takes his kids and teaches them MMA, and so one of them you can look. One of the boys you look at and you're like, Yeah, he looks like he's got that wrestler. The other one is like this really good actor guy, and he's my favorite one to talk about because he's also doing this. So right when you think, I can bully him, then that doesn't go so well. No. And then I've been told your daughter's actually the best.
She's the killer. Yeah.
She's the killer. Yeah, she's the killer.
Yeah. She's a
so
mess.
I'm looking forward to that story, where the boy got a little aggressive and nope, lights out, and he wakes up. So, how did I end up on this ground? So, where'd she go? So you guys, you've really valued, we want our children, and I think this is key here, and Keri and I were talking about this, we're in a very passive parenting generation now. Sure. And what's the name of the parenting style?
Gentle parenting.
Gentle parenting.
They call that? Yeah.
So your preschool goes and bites another kid's nose off, and you're supposed to tell them it's okay. Like, no, that's not okay, and we don't need to communicate that. So I don't want to get back on that again because we're going to deal with that heavy. We dealt with that heavy in the preschool conversation in the littles, but that continues on with littles. Like, it's not passive. You're trying to teach your kids responsibility. You're trying to teach them to own things. And you're doing this young, and so you're from get off the bus, boys. You're going to Marine Corps and Navy SEAL guy. So how do you take this with your children, where you're teaching discipline, but you're not pushing them away because you guys got them home all day, but you're also elevating them? Like, walk us through some of the tensions, maybe, of stories of where you've had to.
How do you know when you're pushing too hard?
Yeah. How do you know when you're pushing too hard? How do you know when you're not pushing hard enough?
Well, now that they're 15, they tell you.
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
They'll tell you just how poorly you parented them with something. But, I am a hothead. So this whole, don't ever discipline in anger and in the moment. Yeah, that doesn't work. I mean,
it just didn't happen.
Realistically, I don't have that kind of patience. So I'm very much.
So you're the one who actually went drill sergeant. You will not talk to me like this.
And then ask for forgiveness. So a lot of times it was, I would just lose it. And then I'd have to sit them down and say, this is what happened. This is why I lost it. Probably should have handled it better. But and as they've gotten older, my daughter's she'll call me out in a hot minute. Well, I don't understand because you said this and then did this. And, so we'll sit down and talk about it. And I think that's the biggest thing. Like, we've had to talk to them about it. I've had to pull them out of their shell. Sometimes they'll shut down. Our boys are just like, whatever, and they'll just shut down. But he takes a lot more to get angry. The kids are funny. They say, I am the disciplinarian, but when he gets mad, they're scared. Because it takes so much. It takes so much to get him upset. But I think that's the biggest thing. We've instilled responsibility in them from an early age. I think it's important. We were just having this conversation with our kids the other day. It's important to have chores and things you have to do starting in elementary school. In middle school, it gets a little bit more, you have a little bit more responsibility, a little bit more difficult things to do. Our kids now are talking about getting jobs, and they're like, well, if we get a job, we don't have to do chores. And I was like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
And they're like, but I'm working. And I was like, and?
That's called adulthood.
Yeah, we homeschool, so we're not schooling all day.
Yeah.
Your part-time job, so that's your job. Job and school is your job. And your chores are your chores. And then, but under the umbrella of mom and dad pay for everything, you're not going to fail. So we're teaching you how to live on your own. We're teaching you how to have a job and own a home and take care of it.
And again, you start this as elementary school.
For sure.
So tell us some of those beginning things that you did. Like, here's responsibility for you. What are some of those things that you put on them?
Well, even early on, I think it's so time consuming, and I want to bang my head against the wall. But even when they're kindergarten and first grade and they want to help, they want to sweep, they want to unload the dishwasher, oh my God, it's so time consuming.
Yeah.
Because you have to go back and read
fix it all.
Right, or it takes 4 hours, right? But they want to do it. And so starting there, and then, as they got older, their rooms, making their beds. Now that they're older, we're talking laundry, cutting grass. I mean, they pretty much. My kids asked us the other day, like, "What do y'all do?"
We oversee and manage.
That's what I've earned the right to not
That's right.
have to do this.
And is there an allowance involved in that
No,
or not?
absolutely
That's
not.
an expectation.
It's an expectation, and we've told them they just haven't made it this far.
Yeah.
We told them that we would pay them to do other chores only if and when the assigned chores are done. So, like, if I pay you to wash my car, it's only if you finish the assigned chores.
Yeah.
Well, they haven't finished their assigned chores.
So that's something I'm really big on as well. We don't do allowances, and like we're in this as a family together, and so like with Ari, when he came along, there were certain times that we would pay him to do things, and there was other times we didn't. And that was to teach him, like, hey, you're in a family. We're in this together. There's not this sense of entitlement because
Right.
you're a kid. Like,
You have to contribute.
you're going to contribute. You're a part of this.
Right.
And we're really big on that with our kids, whether it's in involvement in the church, involvement in the family, involvement in the community, with our neighbors. Like, all right, come help. We're going to go help this neighbor. And we're not doing this to get paid. We're going to help this neighbor out because they need some help. And that's what we're going to do. And so I would take them with me to do those kind of things. And so that's been really to the point where it was awkward a couple of times where neighbors like tried to pay my kid. I'm like, no, don't pay him. We're not, you're not helping me if you pay him. We're trying to instill this value of responsibility and service and ownership of one
As
another.
well as seeing needs and responding
And
to
helping,
needs. Yeah,
yeah.
and helping.
and responding to that.
But that's what happens, right? We graduate from high school. Even when we go to college, you go and you're like, what do I do? Can't cook, can't clean, can't do my laundry. I got to go to school all day and manage my time now because my teacher's not telling me how to do it.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't start early and then you throw all of it on them, they're overwhelmed. So if you start early, do some chores. Chores get more complicated as they get a little older, and then they start adding this part-time job. And we tell our kids all the time, it's like it's preparing you for the world, but with the safety net of mom and dad
Right.
still pay for everything. You're not going to be
Yeah.
homeless. You're not going to starve.
Yep.
And that's
And
that's just
it's
how
a
we
lot cheaper where you are in life right now than it will
Yes,
be.
yes. So-
And you just look across the board, and there's people in their 30s that have no life skills. Like, they can't do a single thing, and it's pretty unbelievable. My first experience, I think she had met a couple folks, but my first experience with homeschooled kids was a neighbor that we had when I was in the military, and they were a bit awkward folks or whatever. However, they had 3 or 4 girls, right?
4.
4 girls, and one at like 12, 13, we'd see, and she'd come over and talk, and then before long, it's like we're showing them our kids and stuff. But it was unbelievable that this young girl could do the stuff that she could do. Cook, clean, sew. She could do it all, and we were just like, wow. And at the time, she was saying before she went to, she was an academic more, and then you get married, and you're 21, 22 when you got married. Yeah. So now she's all of a sudden having to call her grandmother and go, hey, how do I cook this? What's 'cause you just hadn't spent a lot of time in a kitchen, and now that's kind of part of the gig.
You got to cook your own food.
Yeah, and so
My grandfather got to the point where he was like, "Girl, can't you cook yet?" I called her that much. How do you do this? How do you do that? And he was like, "What happened?
yeah.
I could bake.
It was-
I couldn't cook."
Yeah. But that's a life lesson, and so part of like our kids now, they started out doing the sous chef part, and then we get them involved in the kitchen, and nope, you're going to help mom cook today.
Well, and what you're doing there is you're teaching responsibility, but you're also teaching confidence as a person. Like, I can do things.
Yes.
And I think that's massively lacking in our Gen Z right now. Is there's this you have a lot of emotional issues that I think are coming out of trace all the way back, and when at 2 and 3 and 4, and now we're 7 and 8, and we can't do this. This kid is grown up thinking they're emotionally dysfunctional, practically dysfunctional. I can't do anything without mom and dad. So I love how you guys have hit it. Like, we understood we have to start this young.
Yes.
And we're giving them wins, and they're going to have failures, but you're giving them wins as a kid. Like, I do this thing, and my family benefits from it. And
I define that as learned helplessness, and our society's full of it.
yes,
Unfortunately.
it really is. It's a taught helplessness.
Because
And-
that benefits certain elements, and that's a whole nother podcast. But
But kids ebb and flow too. So like our kids at 15 were seeing they're a little self-conscious and stuff that they weren't 3 years ago. So like our daughter, we were talking to her and a friend of hers the other day about why all of a sudden are you socially awkward? Like, why all of a sudden are you embarrassed about certain things. And her friend piped up and she's like, I mean, it is kind of hard to like, what was it, interacting with new friends or something? Or I don't know. But anyway, she was saying her friend even piped up and she's like, well, it is kind of weird to make new friends at our age. And I'm like, why?
Why?
I mean,
you're not going to
like,
make friends the rest of your life?
I know. And you weren't that way 2 years ago. And I know puberty changes,
Yes.
and but I think that it's that constant influx of confidence building and things like that, because they do change so much.
And they also have to experience failure. Because they're going to.
Oh, we're big on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm one of those people. I do
hard.
not. Yeah, I'm a big believer in it because I think it's an incredibly good teacher. And so in the gentle parent, failure is actually redefined. Oh no, nothing failed. Nothing. That kid's nose isn't. You didn't bite that kid's nose off. It just happened. So I think that's a horrible thing because there's nothing that builds confidence more than failing and then overcoming that. Yes.
Yeah. We had one that was a terrible loser as a toddler.
I'm a terrible loser and I'm 50.
He's gotten better. He's gotten better, but as a toddler, I mean, and even on up, I mean, just talking through things with him, just why is this so important to you? Like, we're talking about something really benign that shouldn't matter that much, and he's gotten so much better. But some of that's just innate temperament, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, no, we're all about failure.
So what are some of the things that you let your kids fail at young as elementary school? Like, what are some things you went, okay, this is safe failure. We're going to let them fail because this is going to be a coaching moment.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of something we chose to let them fail at. I think we definitely, I'll say that the school that we had them enrolled in Asheville, we liked the curriculum there because we chose to go into a classical like model. And so in those, they study Latin, they do, but they had things, the one thing was called speech meet. And they go up and they had to like, you memorize a poem or something. And you get up in front of the entire class and you say it. And like there's parents and everyone.
The entire school.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
there's
Yeah.
150 people in this
practicing.
congregation, and this little 7-8-year-old is up there doing his thing. So we all know that
Intimidating.
public speaking is. It probably took you some time to get used to it. Some people take to it pretty easily, but not everybody does. We have one son who just was not comfortable with it, but we just kept saying like, "Hey, the more you do this, the easier it's going to get."
Yeah.
And so. And it's the same way with athletics or anything else. My kids compete in jiu-jitsu tournaments, and yep, you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. You still shake the hand, you still do. So I don't know that we really ever set them up to go, yep, they're going to mess this one up. But we always gave them the opportunity.
It was the opportunity. I think that's where I was getting at.
Yeah,
Like,
there's always opportunity for something to be easier than it is. And then we just try to always model the idea of like, hey, how'd that go? What could have went better? What could have been here and there? And a lot of that as well is anytime there is an issue, when we're sitting down to dinner or something, if there's an argument that comes up between the kids or if it's this or if it's that, that's usually a discussion point and we'll throw it out there. And then we're big on saying like, hey, I made a mistake with this. And if they know dad and mom will own up when something goes wrong, then the kid is very much more like, oh, okay. It gives you credibility.
And I've done that with our kids as well. Keri has, like right out of the gate.
Yes.
If we're old enough to talk, then we're old enough to communicate how we're going to handle failure, because that's so much a part of life.
Yes.
So how are we going to work through this? Whether it's my failure in how I responded in a situation, I need to be honest about it, or as my son got older and just talked about struggling with things as a man, with the lust of the flesh and the lust of the eyes and boastful pride of life. And hey, Ari, you're going to struggle with this. And so, hey, guess what? Dad struggles with it too. And so let's have these conversations. And so you just need to know when you come to me and talk about it, you've already heard from me. So the door's open for you to be able to talk back to me. And that goes, it's weird how that people don't do that. They're like, oh, our kids can't know how we fail. And I'm like, no, failure is a part of life. And it's an opportunity to either grow or decline, but very rarely is it a stationary opportunity. And one of the things I want to point out, make sure people watched you say, depending on if you're watching this on YouTube or if you're listening on Apple or Google or wherever it is you talked about an academic opportunity as well as a sports opportunity. I think a lot of times when we think of opportunity to fail with an elementary kid, we got to put them on a team. And that's cool. I love sports. but not every kid's an athlete. You've got a kid standing on a stage. Surveys often say that people would rather die than public speaking. That wasn't me. I was never an issue with that, but I was like, really? But to put, I'm pretty sure I can pick which kid it is that didn't want to be on the stage reciting that.
The same one we're trying to get to play the guitar at youth.
Yes, that same one. So he had that opportunity that I got to overcome this fear. I got to overcome all this. And he's young, he's little, and that's a lot of stress, but it was good.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I want parents to hear is if you're waiting to put responsibility, ownership of the home, ownership of the family, if you're waiting to let your kids experience hard things, stand up in front of 100 and some odd people, recite a poem, there's probably plenty of people listening to this, and I would never do that. And I'm an adult, So putting your children in these positions, and you know what? They may hit the home run. It's great, but they also may strike out. So what are we going to do? We're going to teach them about their identity. We're going to teach them about how to overcome. We're going to teach them your life is not identified by that one event, whether you succeeded or failed. And tell us how you use that. I'm preaching. I want to hear from y'all.
About what now?
How you use that. So
words.
like as you came, are you saying I talk too much?
Yes,
Yeah.
she is.
No.
What? All right. So, no, delete. That gets edited out. Yeah. No, just kidding. So tell us how you use those opportunities with them where there was failure. Like, how did you come in with that or success? Because that can be just as much of a disaster for some kids as failure.
Well, I think one thing is we didn't, as far as failure, we made our kids do a lot of things, right? So people will ask us all the time, well, your kids are into jujitsu and your daughter plays the drums and your boys do this and that. Not, they don't want to. We didn't wait for them to decide. Like when they were really young, like elementary school age, we put them in everything. They didn't want to play soccer. I don't care. You're playing soccer. We're going to give it a year. They did theater camp. They did gymnastics. So they were failing all the time because they were doing things they didn't really even want to do. And then as far as like failure and success, how did we handle that? We do try to tell them to fail well and win well, because you've got to be a good winner too.
Well, and they're competing together. Maybe not necessarily against each other. So you've got
there's
days
some
where they
against
come
each other.
in and there's
I think that's probably our biggest issue has been a lot of comparison.
Yeah.
As they've gotten older, the boys especially, but when they were younger, it was a lot of comparison about who does what and well and not well. And we've really had to teach them to play to their strengths. And even like in jiu-jitsu, they're very different. They're very different in how they I'm not going to articulate
They practice
that,
the art.
right. And so and they come at it from a different direction. So but addressing failure, how did we address failure?
Well, I can use I can use the example that you're talking about while speaking in front of groups. So there's this high level of anxiety before you begin, and we're going, hey, obviously all the other kids are going, they're kind of stressed out too, but have you heard a single one? A lot of times this will go on over the course of like 3 days or something, and so you're like, you realize like everyone is in your corner. Right. It doesn't matter if you muff it up completely. They'll go, man, better luck next time. So nobody has this. You're not going to get laughed at. You're not going to get ridiculed. You're going to go out. You're going to try your best and see how well you do, and then make adjustments from there. We all have things we're good at. We all have things we're not good at, but it tends to be the things that we are uncomfortable with that make us grow. So,
well, in the identity piece, and Keri and I were talking this morning, is our goal is that our children grow up and they're blown away by how much God loves them, that they see no greater thing than I am loved by God. I'm one of his kids. I have eternal life. He paid the price for me. Like nothing equals that, So to be able to use these failures to bring them back to that sometimes, like our oldest daughter, she puts off that she's not competitive, but you let her not do well at a test and it just wrecks her. Like she prides herself in these academics. She wants to do well. And Keri's had to really come along and be like, honey, look, it's really cool that you're upset that you didn't get that perfect score, like that's great. But life's not over. God loves you. You're okay. Like, you're okay. We don't need to, we don't have to fall apart on this. And let's figure out what happened, and we'll fix it and come back, and you'll do great next time, you know? And those tools have been so good that is counteracted by the gentle parent method. So the gentle parent method comes along and tells her, oh, you didn't really fail. Well, no, you did. You didn't get the grade you wanted. So you lost, you know. You shouldn't feel bad. No, you should. Like, you wanted, you know what I'm saying? Like, the gentle parent covers it up, whereas biblical parenting says, hey, yep, fails, hurt, stinks, didn't succeed. But that's not who I am. And what can we learn to move forward? Which I'm guessing that was kind of a big deal in how they coached you in the teams, right? Like, failure's a part of it.
There are objective truths.
They're universal across the board,
Yes.
you know, universal.
But the idea of the debrief, right? And you know, after every op, you come back, you set your rifle and stuff down, and you debrief before you go eat, before you do anything, while it's still fresh in your mind. Hey, what did I? And the environment there is such that articulating what you messed up on is first and foremost, and it is not ridiculed, it is appreciated. It's heralded. It's almost a competition for people, because that means I recognize something I could have done better.
Yeah.
So after everyone, you know, we come in and, all right, this team, that team, and as it's going around, anybody see anything, you know, hey, I just noticed this team moved up to here. There were 3 of us over there. We were covered down on that, but we probably could have done a better job of providing cover for those guys as they're, you know, anything. And it's like, oh, yeah, okay, there's a good point. And it was always typically centered around, I could have done a better job with this or that.
And that's a mindset shift for so many people.
Yes.
In our culture, that is counter culture.
Well, it's taken some getting used to work in the private sector, because everyone is like, well, you know, it's late because of that.
This person over there, over here,
it's not here, right? Because I can't have somebody thinking that, you know, I'm not the best guy in the room.
Yeah.
Instead of the opposite. And what's bad is you find out anybody in a leadership position, if you're not willing to admit, oh, I messed that up, I could have done this better. If that's never uttered, you don't have any credibility. Nobody believes you. You know.
Yeah, and nobody believes you. Your integrity as a leader's shot.
Yes.
And your success as a leader is tremendously limited.
Because now nobody does want to admit anything that goes wrong, because it's like, well, that's not how leadership is done here.
Yeah, and it can't improve. That's one of our Avery will tell you, like, after our big huge events, we always, whatever the big event is, trunk or treat or whatever it is, we have a big debrief, and we tell everybody, all right, this is for adults only. Meaning, you have to come in, we're gonna rip this thing apart, we're gonna try to figure out how we make it better. And so, I mean, we haven't had an event go bad in a long time. So we're talking about shredding up things that went great, but how do we learn and grow? That, again, goes back to, as a child, have we taught this child that their identity is in Christ? This is who they are. So it's safe to sit around and talk about failure and how we can improve. And it's actually wise, and I want to do it because I'm good. Like, God's good with me. I'm good. I know who I am. So I can dive into this and really grow as a person. And I think what parents are missing is that starts when they're little and in the middle. If you're waiting until they're in the big category, it's too late. You have missed that window, and you're doing a whole lot of catching up. So let me lighten around some things, all right? Keri, as you have them, you can fire them into, okay? Lightning around as we kind of draw in here. Talk about what is your, because this is preference. Everybody has a different one. I'm just curious about y'all's, all right? How much time do you let your kids, I know y'all have some. How do you regulate media, TV, phone usage, all that stuff?
So historically, Monday through Friday, no screens, none, no TV, no iPad, no iPhone.
Talk to me about when they were in elementary age.
Elementary, no, they didn't have any.
Certainly the case. They didn't get phones till they were about 13.
They had
14,
iPads, but it was no screen time Monday through Friday. School time, no screen time.
Monday through Friday.
Monday through Friday, unless we had a family movie night or like a family time that we sat down. Now, come 3:00 on Friday, the TV was on. But it was
so screen time includes TV.
Oh yeah, TV,
anything
iPad.
that's a screen.
Yeah, no, we didn't do any screen time, and that's even now at 15. They have very strict screen rules. Maybe not quite Monday through Friday.
we
but,
might get an
show.
hour in or something.
But
here or
but
there.
in elementary school, and it makes a huge difference. It makes a huge difference from my kids Monday through Friday personality wise versus Saturday and Sunday when they're on the screen. You can see it. It's black and white.
Yes.
And we talk about this all the time. Parents will ask us, well, how did you take that screen? And I was like, well, you have a bigger problem than how did you take the screen, because you have to establish that authority and that respect to say, let me have it. And my kids are 15. They're going through puberty. They have their own opinions about things. 2 weeks ago, I said, I lost it. Give me your phones. Okay. 2 weeks went by before anybody said, are we ever going to get those back? Right? Because we've set the precedent.
Average kids ask that in 5 minutes.
Right, but you set the precedent early on. Like, it has to be set early on. If you give your kid unlimited amounts of time on a screen and you don't regulate it, then when you come in and try to regulate it, they're going to be like, where did you come from?
Yeah.
We've regulated it from day one. And so that is important, especially in those early years. It's so important that I'm not saying you have to do it that strict Monday through Friday, but you have to establish the boundary of what I say goes, and the screen is under my, I had to get to decide, not you.
Yeah, not you. This isn't
And
a
if I
right.
want to use it as a disciplinary action, I can. And
Privilege, not a right.
Yeah, absolutely. Screens are a big one.
Talk to me about, you have triplets, same age, 3 different kids, 3 different, like we've gotten to know your kid, 3 completely different personalities. How do you manage each kid feeling like how do you manage your time so that you're pouring into those 3?
That's hard.
Yeah.
I don't know that we do that well.
Well, I
Well,
think
coach
we
yourself.
do.
Talk about where you feel like you can grow and where you've done success.
So here recently, we have animals, right? We have chickens and ducks and pigs, and we essentially live on a farm. So when Jess talks about the chores, that's they get up first thing in the morning and do that. There are times where we get up, we go to the 6 a.m. jiu-jitsu class, so they'll get up the crack of dawn, go do jiu-jitsu, come back, and then they have to do their chores before we sit down and have breakfast, and then school's going to, so it's going to be a long day. We have tried several things. I'm a spreadsheet guy, so I made up a spreadsheet. And
Hey, me too.
it's colors, and here's your stuff for Monday and Tuesday. It bounces all around, and I've balanced it great. And things, she'll be outside and she goes, why is this bucket not washed out? And it's,
I
didn't have chickens today.
Yeah.
There was always some drop of the ball, and there was a way to get around it, because it's like, well, that's not my day. Okay. So about a week ago, we pulled them all in. We discussed this, and we're like, all right, how are we going to get around this? I know how we're going to get around this. So we pull them in, and we're like, okay. So
We took their cell phones.
pull the cell phones.
That was just principle.
Yeah. And then it was, okay, so we're going to make you stand there and pump feet, and you all 3 go out at the same time. So a lot of times our daughter will head out first, and then after a while she became the arbiter of like, well, I'm just going to do the chickens because I like doing them. The pigs take longer, or whatever it was. And so it's like, nope. Now you all 3 stand there at the door, and you'll exit at the same time. You do not come in until you all 3 come in at the same time, and everything has to be done.
Yeah.
So I don't care how you do it.
Yeah.
If y'all decide you want to do one thing every time, then y'all do it that way. If y'all want to switch it up, y'all do it that way. You guys are going to learn to work as a team, and you're going to learn conflict resolution.
Yes.
And we're
Good
going to
lessons.
make you, yes. And, And like we tell them, like, listen, when you're on a job somewhere or whatever, there's going to be times where this isn't my job. You pick it up. You learn to step into the gap and help people out when they need it. So that's what we're trying to teach them now, and it's working. We'll see.
Well, it's about doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of times we get pushback of like, well, they wouldn't do that for me.
Yeah.
And so I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care that they wouldn't do it for you. Do the right thing. If you all did the right thing, it will come back full circle. There'll be a time where they did something for you, maybe you didn't know about, but just do the right thing if that's what because they put so much energy in finger pointing. But we have a unique situation in that we're all home all day together. Mike works from home. I work from home. The kids are home. So, we get time alone with each of them. We go and do things with each of them, and so, but we do a lot of family stuff because we're together all the time.
So we're like somebody like us where we have and the Pews particular, they have 5 kids, from high schooler down to their youngest is kindergarten. Wow. So you have not only different personalities, different places in life, and they're trying to figure that out. So they're at 5. We have 3. I've now got one in college, I got one in high school, I got one in elementary school, and elementary school's in gymnastics, and high school Ada is into all things hair and beauty, and I mean that girl's incredible, and then Ari, of course, is off of college. So we're trying to figure that balance out, and I felt the pressure a lot as a pastor. I'm a 60-hour-a-week guy for 22 years to be able to lead a church. People who out there run small businesses, you're like, oh yeah, I know that. They get that. So you have all these dynamics, and then Keri, you don't ever pastor a church as the Catholics. I don't know how they do that. The priest is single. Like, I don't get it. Like, it takes both of us. So the church really has. This is the first lady. But the church has both of us hyper involved. Now you're trying to take this time and figure out, okay, when you do something with Ari, I need to go do something with Ada, I need to do something with Remy, and then you start, well, gosh, I did more with Remy than I did Ada. And have y'all ever felt that way with triplets, or it's just been easy because you just stuck them all in the house and you're like, we're here together,
I think when he worked out of the house, it was probably a little bit more that way, as far as like getting family time in, but also trying to because then I was with them all day, all 3 of them, not being able to separate them out. And he would come home not have seen them all day. And so I think then, but as far as individual time, I don't.
Well, I would say that when they were younger, right? I mean, really younger, it's easy to lump them all together. And then as they get older, they get their own interests. And so you'd alluded to it before. I've got one that's kind of an outdoorsy kid, and he likes doing certain things. And my brother-in-law laughs at me because he's like, you give your kids weapons all the time. It's the funniest thing, So like this Christmas it'll be throwing knives and stars or whatever, and he's outside just working it until getting the reps in. I've got one son who's into theater, and he's really, really good. And so every time you turn around, he's in a play or something. So he's going to do that. So
that's the practices. Yeah. That's the productions. Yep. That's the it's hours.
He's going that route. My daughter.
Well, and you're taking part of that now.
Yeah.
So, the daughter's got her own interests. She does it all. And so, between volleyball and jiu-jitsu and drums. So now they have their own interests. And I find that we typically, it's cool to walk in as my daughter's playing and just talk to her for 5 minutes. And she's like, oh, Avery's talking about this new song. And so I got to work on this or that. And so just giving a few minutes here or there and making those laps around means something, And so Mason goes to do a play. We watch that play 4 or 5 times. A lot of times we're at every one, and hey, was that one better than last time? So it's just
we also make them do things with us. I mean, I wouldn't say that we take them out individually and go to dinner and spend time with them, but like if I'm going to the grocery store, I'll make Jocelyn go because we've got an hour and a half to talk, or like if he's going to the gym by himself, like he'll take the boys. Do they want to go? No, but it's A, they need to go, and B, it's just time for the guys to go do something. So I don't think that we do anything. I think when we first had them and they were younger, I felt like, well, you need to go on a daughter-daddy date once a week, and I need to take the boys and do that. And it's just not like that. I think if you have multiple kids too, and you have anybody working out of the home, and your time is crazy, or you both are working out of the home, the time is crazy. I think even just separating them, even 10 or 15 minutes, like just, hey, walk down the street, for a few minutes. Let's go for a walk after dinner. I don't think it has to be a grand gesture of we're going to go do this big thing to spend time with them. I think it's just taking a moment and saying, you are going to go with me for 10 minutes, and we're going to go walk down the street and have a little chat and come back.
Well, I love the balance you guys bring to... You have something, Keri?
Nope.
I love the balance you guys bring to the individual development, but then the family development, and seeing those two things together. And we've done a lot of that as well, like when it comes to our participation in church, and like you bring your kids to life group a lot of times. Sometimes you can't, especially at the age they're at. But when our kids were younger and they weren't at practice or this thing, like they're going with us to be in this group. They're going with us to do this ministry. And we've took them into hard things. We've had some really, really traumatic stuff happen to people's lives. And we've brought our kids into that with us and bore that burden as a family with these people that were going through this. And so we just kind of labored as a family in ministry. We've tried to labor as a family in serving. So that gives us like, hey, yeah, we may not have had this individual thing, but we've had something together of substance. And then I found, like, kind of like you, I just try to find those times. Like, I'll take one of the things I love to do at least a couple days a week is drop kids at school. You know, it's a few minutes in the car, just with Remy, a few minutes in the car just with Ada. And when you were talking, I remember I used to take Ari out and we'd go work out. And sometimes he wanted to, and other times it was everything in me to not be like, go into, I've never seen a drill sergeant in person, but I watched him in the movies, you know, like I had a coach that I swear was one, you know, and I'd be like, what is wrong with you? Are you whining and are you going to do this or not? And, but we would go out and we're like, all right, we're gonna go in the garage and we're going to work out together. And we started that in elementary school. Like, I've got a picture of him out there doing deadlifts, you know, at like 8, you know, and I bought him a little bar and stuff. But those were moments that I learned as a kid with my dad. Was the same way. The shipyard didn't care. You got to be, here's when you're going to be at the yard, and that's when you're going to be there. But I remember bike rides with Dad. I remember these things, and then I remember things as a family that we did together. And I'm quite a bit older than my brother and sister, so I was getting later. I was later in life. But, well, hey, Keri, do you have anything else that you wanted to fire at here before we wrap up our second session? Is that what they're called? No, not a. I'm looking at Avery. Give me the word. Episode. It's an episode. So, and I'm sure it's going to receive millions of views. But this will play well. I'm sure folks are going to be interested in your story. I can't thank you guys enough for taking the time. And I love this format because I don't have a clock in front of me telling me I got to hurry up because there's people pulling in the parking lot that we got to give their space to. So we can just sit down and talk and chat, and folks can hit pause and come back the next day and finish it. And so look forward to having you guys on again, because you really do bring some unique perspectives, and I look forward to some other conversations we're going to be able to get into in the future on some of these seasons. So thank you for joining us, and hey, stay tuned. Episode 3 will be rolling out, or it's already out, however this works. I don't even know yet. But it's going to be on Biggs. All right, we're going to be talking about middle school and high school students, which are very easy to understand. They make complete rational sense, and they certainly don't walk out of the house when it's 100 degrees outside with a sweatshirt on, because that makes sense, right? Never do that. Never. So, yeah. So all the things, so we'll be getting into that. I'm really excited about when we get to that conversation too. So, hey, thank you for joining us. And unless you want to learn more about Venture Church, check it out. They're going to talk to you probably here in just a second, probably when I stop talking. See you soon.